What is the best way of living? Maharishi. It differs according as one is a jnani or a jnani. A jnani doesn't find anything different or separate from the self. All are in the self. It is wrong to imagine that there is the world, that there is a body in it, and that you dwell in the body. If the truth is known, the universe and what is beyond it will be found to be only in the self. The outlook differs according to the sight of the person. The sight is from the eye. The eye must be located somewhere. If you are seeing with the gross eyes, you find others gross. If with subtle eyes, that is the mind, others appear subtle. If the I becomes the self being infinite, the I is infinite. There is nothing else to see different from the self. He thanked Maharishi. He was told that the best way of thanking is to remain always as the self. Talk 107. Later the yogi asked, how is the spiritual uplift of the people to be affected? What are the instructions to be given them? Maharishi. They differ according to the temperaments of the individuals and according to the spiritual ripeness of their minds. There cannot be any instruction in mass. Devotee. Why does God permit suffering in the world? Should He not, with His omnipotence, do away with it at one stroke and ordain the universal realization of God? Maharishi. Suffering is the way for realization of God. Devotee. Should He not ordain differently? Maharishi. It is the way. Devotee. Are yoga, religion, etc. antidotes to suffering? Maharishi. They help you to overcome suffering. Devotee. Why should there be suffering? Maharishi. Who suffers? What is suffering? No answer. Finally the yogi rose up, prayed for Sri Bhagwan's blessing for his own work and expressed great regret for his hasty return. He looked very sincere and devoted and even emotional. Talk 108. In continuation of dialogue 105, Uddalaka explained that all proceeds from Sat, as illustrated by deep sleep. The body takes food. Food requires water. Water requires heat to digest the food. It is Sat, Parashyam, Devatyam, merged in the being. If we are Sat, Sampanna, merged in the being, how is it that we do not realize it? Maharishi. Just as the honey gathered from different flowers forms the bulk in a honeycomb, and each drop doesn't indicate wherefrom it has been collected, so also Sat, Sampanna, in deep sleep, death, etc. People do not recognize their individualities. They slip into that state unawares, but when they wake up, they regain their original individual characteristics. Devotee. Honey, though collected from different flowers, becomes the bulk and doesn't possess individual characteristics. But the individual parts do not also exist in the drops and they do not return to their sources. Whereas the individual, after going to deep sleep, wake up individuals as formerly. How is it? Maharishi. Just as the rivers discharged into the ocean lose their individualities, still the waters evaporate and return as rain on the hills and through rivers to the ocean, so also the individuals, going to sleep, lose their individualities and yet return as individuals according to their previous vasanas unawares. Thus, even in death, Sat is not lost. Devotee. How can that be? Maharishi. See how a tree whose branches are cut growing again. So long as the life source is not affected, it will grow. Similarly, the samskaras sink into the heart in death. They do not perish. They will, in right time, sprout forth from the heart. That is how the jivas are reborn. Devotee. How does the wide universe sprout forth from such subtle samskaras remaining sunk in the heart? Maharishi. Just as a big banyan tree sprouts from a tiny seed, so the wide universe with names and forms sprouts forth from the heart. Devotee. If the origin is Sat, why is it not felt? Maharishi. The salt in the lump is visible. It is invisible in solution. Still, its existence is known by taste. Similarly, Sat, though not recognized by the intellect, can still be realized in a different way, that is, transcendentally.